My name is Matthew Todd, and welcome to Inside the Scale Up. This is the podcast for founders and executives in tech looking to make an impact and learn from their peers within the tech business. We lift the lid on tech businesses, interviewing leaders and following their journey from startup to scale up and beyond, covering everything from developing product market fit, funding and fundraising models to value proposition structure and growth marketing. We learn from their journey so that you can understand how they really work, the failures, the successes, the lessons along the way, so that you can take their learnings and apply them within your own startup or scale up and join the ever-growing list of high-growth UK SaaS businesses. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Really pleased today to be joined by Aaron Jones, co-founder of Yepic.ai. Great to have you here this morning.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Matthew.
No worries. I'm looking forward to finding more about the journey, about Yepic itself and the path that you've taken so far. But to kick things off, can you just give us a little bit of background about yourself, a little bit about Yepic as well, please?
So thank you. My name is Aaron Jones. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Yepic.ai. And at Yepic, we're helping people to create, dub and personalize video at scale, mainly via API. It's been a really, really exciting journey of going from image generation through to video creation today. And I'm really, really excited about where the space is moving. Generative AI is moving super, super fast. Me personally, I'm interested in basketball. I'm trying to learn to fly. And I really, really like Barry's Bootcamp.
Nice. No, it looks really good. And I've seen on the website a few of the product demo videos you've got as well. And it looks like impressive tech, certainly, moving AI forward to this new, like you say, generative capability that seems to be emerging at the moment in a few different areas. So it's kind of interesting to hear a little bit more about the product as well as that journey so far as well. So where did things start with Yepic then? You mentioned it started as a research project, but what led to that in the first place?
Yeah, so I was brought in as like the managing director of the project. And initially the project was a image enhancement project. The idea was, let's work with Depop and with all these apps where consumer apps where people upload photos of products to sell. Yeah. And let's try and use AI to stylize the images, to enhance them, to make them all look the same, so that you've got all of the eBay images look high quality. That was the initial project vision. Yeah. I came in and I said, that's a bit crappy. That sucks. We can do much more than that. And I had this very, very clear vision for where the world was heading with generative AI, even before we sort of got there. And the very first product that we started to develop was a stable diffusion project. We were doing stable diffusion before it was even a thing. Yeah. And, possible because of our incredible research team. My co-founder, Dr. Yanis Kazazinis, is a child prodigy genius of all things research and AI. And he loves a challenge. So the initial iteration of the project was, let's create images for e-commerce, but not just images to show on the website, but retargeting images. So imagine Matthew's been shopping. Matthew's been looking at a pair of high heels for his wife and a pair of a jacket for himself and some toys for his kids. Yeah. The idea was that we would generate an image that sort of brought together all of these products in one. I know what you're probably thinking, Matthew in high heels with a jacket and some toys wouldn't be a very good ad. And this is actually one of the problems we encountered. It was really hard to find coherent patterns in what people were wearing. I see. And the project sort of evolved and it moved away from this stable diffusion type model where we generate images for e-commerce and for advertising towards video. Yeah. I think the fundamental reason for that was because it's really, really hard to prove that an image increased revenue, because in e-commerce you have the website side, which is owned by the brand. Yeah. And up to the website, up to the conversion point, the website's in control, the brand's in control. And the cost base for creating imagery is set. They spend so much money each year on product imagery, and that is the amount they spend. Yeah. So you either need to save them money and make the images for less money, which is really hard with stable diffusion because you need lots of images to input to get a high quality output. Or you have to prove that these new wonderful creative images increase the conversion. But on the conversion side, these distribution channels, the advert channels, the retargeting channels, they're often owned by third parties. They're owned by Google, by Facebook, by Amazon. And on that side, everyone's fighting for the attribution. Yes. Everyone wants to say, it was me. I got you the conversion.
Yeah.
Because that's what the businesses are built on. So for you to come in as an external vendor and say, we want to dynamically give you images and increase the conversion, it was very, very, very hard. And also the speed at which you have to generate these images is sub 400 milliseconds.
Yeah.
So you need to have an image that's ready for every single person that you're cataloging to be shown at any time, because you can't generate the images in sub 400 milliseconds on demand and serve the image via the ad network. So we moved away from that to video. Video was a much bigger market. Like production is a 170 billion pounds market, 20 billion of that is making awful, cruddy corporate training videos that everyone hates. Yeah. So that's what we began. We began with these awful training videos that everyone hates. Yeah. And nobody likes to make them. Nobody likes to watch them. And we started developing an AI that would turn text scripts into these talking avatars with different backgrounds. And that really has been the bread and butter of our business since we began. And then more recently, we've been working in the dubbing space a lot more, trying to take people's existing content and, number one, allow you to edit it and change the words in the video. And number two, allowing you to dub the whole video into any language, allowing you to take the existing training video you have, edit it slightly, and then localize it to different markets around the world. We're seeing some huge success here working with AstraZeneca's A-Catalyst network and also with companies like Axions.
No, interesting. I think, just going back on that e-commerce use case for the images, I can certainly see that attribution problem. All those ad platforms want to take full credibility for that attribution because they want you spending more money there. So they're doing everything they can to reinforce the fact that these are the metrics that you should be looking at on our platform. They're our metrics. You should be putting more money in them. This is where you should be putting it as well. So I can certainly see how that was not profitable.
The flip side to that is if there's anyone listening out there right now that, has been playing with Stable Diffusion and, has this idea, it's a great way to quickly flip a company. If you can get this in the ad networks deeply embedded and get the images generated in milliseconds,
there's an opportunity.
And it's an opportunity to be acquired quite quickly, I think, because Facebook, Google, that they're not going to let you sit on their platform for long if this works. Yeah. If this works, they're certainly going to acquire you because you become a vital part of proving out the ROI.
Yeah, I see. So the route is probably embedded as part of that ecosystem rather than an external party to it.
And I think compared to like our system years ago, you couldn't generate images in real time in sub 400 milliseconds, whereas now you can. Yeah. Our whole video generation pipeline is real time, and to now generate images is quite easy. So I think there is a huge opportunity there for someone that wants to go after that market.
Yeah. So were you effectively just too early from a tech perspective with that product then for it to be, profitable and scalable?
Yeah, it was just, it was a bit early. And also there was a large amount of risk around brand reputation. Yeah. Because when you're generating stuff in, real time and there's no one checking what's being made, you open yourself up to all sorts of brand reputation risks. So generally brands were not happy about the idea of an ad network being served images in real time to share with customers, the images they hadn't approved. Yeah. So there was also that side of it too. But I think the really exciting thing here is that we learned that there was a much bigger business opportunity in video in the process of going through this journey. And had you told me 3 years ago that Stable Diffusion would be open sourced and that everyone would be able to generate images, I like instantly with very little coding knowledge, I wouldn't have suspected things would have moved this fast.
Yeah.
I imagined this would come, but I hadn't imagined that this would all happen as quickly as it's happened.
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem to be a very fast-paced area of development. So, having seen that opportunity for video then, for the reasons that you mentioned before, how did you go about validating that, from a business concept perspective as well as from an implementation perspective that you could actually deliver on that as well?
Sure. So I think that when you're doing anything in deep tech and you're sort of developing a foundation model, it's really important that you count the wins as you go, because there'll be many small wins, big wins, and obviously as a business you have a milestone you need to hit. Like, we need X number of people to pay for this.
Yeah.
But with a deep tech project, it's not like if we can just make it, people will buy it.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything happens in iterations, and our whole research team has like rapidly changed. We began as Yanis and some of his research colleagues, and we're now working with some of the world's best researchers.
Yeah.
And we have a deep integrated partnership with CVSSP, and it's changed the way we look at the space. It's changed the way we look at the problem. And going back to the idea of small iterations, I think at the beginning I used to get very frustrated as a founder, because I was like, okay, there's a research paper here that says that you can do this at 125 by 1 or 128 by 128 pixels.
Yeah.
Now I want you to do this, but in full HD.
Yeah.
And the research team would look at me like I was a madman.
Yeah.
And I'd be frustrated, because I'd be like, well, if we can do it at a low resolution, I'm sure we can figure it out at a high resolution. But the research team would work on like iterating and would look at different approaches and bring different approaches together.
Yeah.
And we rebuilt the whole pipeline 5 times. And before we actually even commercialized the product, we used to generate videos. We had a landing page where anyone could make a free video.
Yeah.
And we'd ask people to type in their script, pick a face, an avatar, and then give us some feedback on the video.
I see. Yeah.
And if they gave us feedback, they'd get like 10 free videos as a thank you.
Okay.
And this feedback was how we measured our commercial success before we commercialized, the likelihood of commercial success.
Yeah.
We asked people, if it was the lip sync, how good was the quality of the overall video? Would you pay for it? How much would you pay per video? And what would your use case be? And we were tracking these like 5 metrics across maybe 8 months, 9 months.
Okay.
And about 6 months in, we got to something like a 93% willing to pay.
Wow.
And we got super excited, and we were like, this is amazing. 93% of people are willing to pay. So we very quickly launched the product, initially on Webflow, using a Webflow custom form that looked like a SaaS app, but wasn't. I wanted to keep the development team as free from front-end development and customer stuff as possible. I wanted the research development team to be focused on the algorithms and on making everything work. So I work with a freelancer to make the product essentially in Webflow with a payment gateway. And then we said to everyone that had said they wanted it, you can buy it. Here it is. Here's like a really good deal. And we were just like, how many people will say yes? And the 93% of people that said yes turned into about 20% of those people actually paying.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good rate.
The churn rate was, it was okay.
Yeah.
People would log in, they would make a few videos, and they'd be like, oh, it's good, but not good enough. And I think this was the big learning here. Like, if you're going to replace a human-centric process, in this case, video production, the quality has to be at a point where it's good enough to replace a human talking. I think we were in a bit of this uncanny valley, and it took another 3 months to get to a point where we had like 40% of people willing to pay. And that was really the point we started tracking and started making revenues. Back in like a year ago, our churn rate was something like 80%. Now our churn rate is like 10%.
Wow. Yeah. A pretty
It's,
big difference.
For our top MRR percentile, top 25% of MRR, it's less than 1%.
Yeah.
So the business really has evolved, but the quality of the output is so important to us and to our customers. And I think that this goes for anything in AI. Like Clarity AI, when they started doing classification, they had a similar story. People were all excited about the idea of automating classification.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until their product reached a certain point where it became, as good as a human that it became viable.
Yeah. So I guess it took that iteration
Clarify AI
period with
story.
real data to get to that point, and real feedback as well to make sure that you were at that point for that customer base that you managed to attract.
Yeah. And today it's a different problem we have. Today it's like feature creep. Everyone wants a new feature.
Yeah.
And it's trying to balance how do we manage customers' feature expectations versus the business direction in which we're going. We get people asking us to build all sorts of SaaS type things every week. And saying no has been one of the best lessons. Sometimes you just need to say no. It's better to have a really focused cohort that want to use your product and that can, promote you to other people, than having a million features that make the product useful to everyone. Now we focus on our API, and we focus on producing really broad general features in the API that have multiple use cases. So that we can empower people that already have a web app, already have a video-based product, to incorporate synthetic video into their product. And I think that journey has been I just wish I knew now what I knew like a few years ago.
So it sounds like then you've been through kind of a process of your tech team focusing on that AI video generation quality, and then you start to move into the workflow then of people requesting those features because they're actually trying to use it to achieve something, and now kind of going back to the API so that you are not their workflow tool, but you fit into existing workflow tools and potentially new tools that come to market as well.
100%. I couldn't have said it better myself. That definitely is the business goal, the business direction.
Yeah.
And, we're seeing a lot of commercial success there as well. Like a lot of huge enterprises are sort of using us now and having discussions with us on a daily basis. And I think for us, we had to really focus on what was important. And for us, it was number one, reliability.
Yeah.
Like we need to be able to reliably, consistently make videos 24/7. Number two was the speed of production. So we now have this whole new pipeline that allows us to work in real time at scale. We don't actually deliver the videos in real time though, because it's very expensive. We do them in like a few minutes. And then the third thing is the ability for anyone to create an avatar of themselves instantly. So we allow people to upload a photo. We call it talking photos. And you can sort of instantly animate the photo. So your CEO, your head of marketing, your significant person at your company can speak to your customers in your tone of voice, with your voice clone, and reach people in a more personal way. And then this technology feeds very closely into our VidVoice technology that takes a video feed and just animates the lip area so that you can actually animates the whole frame. But we focus on the lips and on dubbing at a really high level.
Yeah, no, really interesting. And from a business point of view, then obviously that's quite a different type of customer then that you're reaching. It could almost be, B2B2B or B2B2C or any numbers of B's and C's in the middle of that. Right. So how do you what was that process like to move into that API direction, have confidence and start to sell into those kind of customers where I'm guessing you're then, the acquisition of one customer is going to give you a lot more users of the technology, of the platform. But what was that like in terms of starting to test that to see whether there was any merit to it and traction to it? And, how did you go about, positioning that from a business perspective?
It's a good question. I think we knew about a year ago that we had to do something different.
Okay.
There's a bit of a feature race at the moment. There aren't that many companies in synthetic video.
No.
There's many more synthetic audio companies because there are open source repos. There aren't open source high quality repos for video creation or text to video.
Yeah.
Well, not yet at least. So there's not many companies doing what we do.
I see.
All the companies seem to be, going after the same goal, which is like disintermediate the market. All the existing video editing softwares, we're going to replace them with a video editing software that also has the production side to it.
Yes. Yeah, I know what you mean. I've used many tools like that just take a small problem and, it's good because they're good at what they do. But then it often means, oh, great, I want to do this little bit of, I don't know, extracting some audio and putting it over the top on this little video snippet. Now I've got to take that bit of the problem that they solve and put it into my existing workflow. And you end up with this it makes it more complicated to deliver the end result in the end.
Absolutely. I feel like everyone is just racing now to create more features that are focused on a specific use case and to create the best studio for their use case. And while that is one of the best ways to extract value, but with a vertical approach, it's not a race that we want to join. Yeah. So about 6 months ago, we sort of checked out and we said, hey, we have a whole bunch of improvements that we're doing for our studio, but everything we do is about empowering people and selling the product to other tools.
Yep.
And we exited the SaaS race, if that makes sense. And ironically, since we exited the SaaS race, our SaaS revenues have been up 50 to 100% month on month.
Okay.
But an unintended consequence. But we started focusing on features that weren't the same as everybody else's. Yeah. And they weren't the features that customers were necessarily asking for. They were features that we had planned strategically to deliver our API roadmap.
Yeah.
And I think over time, those have become features that people really need and want, which has made our studio app appeal to a certain type of user. But yeah, like building an API that empowers people to do more and be more creative is definitely the goal for us.
Yeah.
Because we just empower more users in a way that you couldn't with a SaaS offering.
Yeah.
It's a race to the bottom. Everyone's competing on features, and once everyone has the same features, everyone has to drop their prices. It's just not a race we want to be part of.
No, absolutely. It does become a race to the bottom then, or you do end up with a lot of very similar studio tools that don't really add a lot, but I can see that, providing the platform that can power those type of tools as well as power very specific use cases and fit into existing workflow tools, I can see how that is a very powerful thing, similarly to the way that Stripe, managed to disrupt online payments. It's not like you couldn't take online payments before, but their API was integrating it in a way that made sense for the developers of those platforms and tools to integrate with. Right? It actually added a lot of capability and value.
You become part of embedded in someone's ecosystem, and you can add more value when someone is using the tool to solve a problem they have, than you coming in trying to learn about the problem and then solve it and take their customers away.
Yeah,
it's an easier, faster way to solve problems, and I think that's how you create a valuable business. You solve problems.
Absolutely, and I guess the interesting thing with this emergence of those new web-based editing tools, whether Canva obviously does it for graphic design, and there are loads of these other tools that do it for video and everything else as well. But for the existing players in those spaces, which they're numerous, as well as for the people innovating, I can see how providing what you provide at an API level, it makes it accessible to both, right? It makes it accessible to the new startups that are trying to do something different and unique, as well as those existing players that are then wondering how on earth they can transition their offering that is already well established but starts to become threatened by some of these little pockets of things that pop up.
Sure, definitely.
In terms of driving Yepic forward now, then how do you see that panning out? Is it just continually working on that research side? Do you have a lot of customers kind of asking for new API features or new levels of scale? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, so right now we're in a really interesting injunction where we're about to launch VidVoice in public beta. We've been working in a private beta for a while. And for us, like, the vision here is much bigger than like just being a video company. You know, our mission is to connect the world through shared language.
Yeah.
And I really believe that in the next stage of the internet 3.0, the metaverse, whatever you want to call it, like the way we interact is going to be different. And I think Facebook has historically had the metaverse very, very wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think the metaverse is going to be a place where people go.
No.
I think this is the misconception people have. The metaverse is going to be like an augmented reality layer of data on top of the lives we live. A layer of data that's controlled and owned by all the people that are there, and that's really secure, that's connected by blockchain, and that's and where ownership and authenticity are the cornerstone of everything.
Yeah. And
I don't think it's going to be like a world powered by crypto. There'll probably be one or two de facto coins that everyone uses. I don't think cryptocurrency as we see it today will even exist. But I do think that I really don't. But I do think that there will be more connection, more human connection.
Yeah.
And I think walking into a room and having a pair of glasses that remind you of who you're connected to on LinkedIn and remind you of the notes you've written on people after your last interaction would be a more powerful tool to connect people than sticking on a headset.
Yes.
Being sat on your own in the dark bedroom and talking to people's cartoon avatars. I think gaming is huge. Yeah. And I think gaming will become more immersive. Gaming will become better. But a lot of people are not interested in gaming. And I think the metaverse will touch everyone's life in a way that's much more human and in a way that connects us. And we want to be the technology layer that connects that. So imagine you've got these glasses on now, and imagine me and you were talking and I only speak Chinese. Imagine if the glasses could re-render the lips in real time so that me and you are able to have a conversation and I can hear and see and understand you. Yeah. And you can see, hear, and understand me. These are the types of interactions that we want our technology layer to enable and to empower. And also, like, you know, we want companies to be able to communicate with people everywhere, irrespective of their language. And I think building tools that enable this type of mass personal communication is really, really important.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think that's a very ambitious but worthy vision. And, you know, thinking about what you were saying about the current capabilities that you've got in terms of generated video, you know, one of the things that you said was tone of voice. So it's not purely, you know, a video whereby you can take that text and it is good enough to consume, but it is actually carrying across that tone of voice of the original, you know, person that created that avatar in the first place. And I think if that is something that you pull off and pull off well, that changes the time and effort required to have, you know, engage with a particular type of communication, whether that's like to an employee, to a customer, or whatever it may be. It allows you to scale something that could not have been scaled before. Absolutely.
And I think like that scale thing is really the key thing. You know, in Web3, like everything's going to be immersive, everything's going to be personal. Like generative media allows everyone to experience the same thing in a personal way that resonates with them. Yeah. Like you see it now with generative art. Like I think that this really is the future. You know, James Courier, NFX Guild, writes a long piece about this, and you know, Sequoia has recently put a number on how big they think the market will be. Yeah. And it's really refreshing to see that all of a sudden a lot of people, they see the world I've been seeing for a while. And I think everyone in the synthetic media space feels the same way. For quite some time, people were saying, "Oh, this is just a fad," you know, like AI won't be on par with human creativity.
Yeah.
And now, like you see the outputs from some of these open source models, and it's like, wow, like this merits attention.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think even, if you look at, consumer behavior adopting different types of tech and devices, looking at, like Alexa and all those other similar devices, hoping she doesn't now start talking to me. But, the fact that many people, yeah, there we go. So if the rate at which people now engage with a voice technology, admittedly, it's very rule-based at the moment. There's not a lot of AI there, but it is, it's a new style of communicating with devices that people are now really taking for granted.
For sure. And I think devices will have more human interfaces in the future. And I think technology like ours is going to play a big role in sort of that real-time communication. And with an API-first approach and real-time generation, we empower and embolden use cases like that. Actually, we started working on a project with an airport group before, just as COVID kicked off.
Yeah.
Sadly, the project got shelved because they had to conserve cash. But the idea was, how can we make like avatars available? How can we make information available to everyone when they're visiting the airport?
I see.
Through interactive screens, through avatars that could communicate with people. That was the idea. An avatar can speak, our avatar can speak 68 languages. How do we then enable one of your customers at the airport to speak to someone and get the information they need in their own language?
Yeah.
I think there is all sorts of exciting opportunities here, because there's something like a human face, right? Even though it's digital, there's something nice about speaking to a face versus talking to a box.
Yeah, I can see that's a very, very different and evolved user and customer experience. And, I'm thinking of like chatbots on websites, they're still relatively primitive. You see a few people kind of evolving that, but, it's completely obvious that that's what's going on. So I think, the ability to take those kind of interactions to the next level as well would certainly be a welcome one. But one thing you mentioned as well was trust. And, I'd be interested to hear your perspective on, you hear people talking about deep fakes and those kind of things. How do you prevent something from being abused with this kind of technology as it improves?
So I mentioned earlier this idea of talking photos, being able to upload a photo and then animate the photo.
Yeah.
And sort of give it your quirks, give it your expression, your style. That process, we require someone to, first of all, upload a photo, and secondly, to record a short video. The short video is the person giving permission, and then we compare the face in the video to the face you've uploaded, and we make sure that they match and that the person has given consent. So this is our first line of control, and it's similar when we used to make avatars for customers. Yeah. When we used to record 20 minutes of video, we used to ask people to verbally give consent in the video.
I see.
We don't allow people to just upload anything. We did a project for the Jubilee where we put the Queen's face and we cloned her voice, but we put very strict restrictions in place on what you could make the Queen say.
Okay.
She would only invite you to a certain location, a certain place, at a certain time for a certain event. It was very templated. So I think that there are two ways to look at this. There's either our controlled approach, where you give people parameters to work within, and you give people reassurance that their data will be handled in a way that's appropriate and a way that's really secure. Or you create a community where everyone can do anything. There's one app called fakeyou.com, where anyone can clone anyone's voice, and you can upload the audio, and it's community driven. Yeah. And you can make anything you like, and you can type anything you like. And I think there's these two schools of thought. One is like let everyone be creative, let everyone create what you want, and the other is put a controlled barrier in place and make sure that people are safe.
Yeah.
We've chosen the latter because I think businesses want that, and I think humans need that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. And yeah, now you've described it, I can see how that naturally fits into part of that process of creating those avatars, embedding the permission as a key part of that process, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I can certainly see providing an API for users of that, why your clients and their clients as well would want, some guarantees around that.
Twitter's interesting. Recently, Elon Musk's Twitter, parody. Buying Twitter is a bit of a parody, but no, he talks about parodies and about like how you can't impersonate someone on Twitter unless you put hashtag parody.
Yeah.
Like it sort of opens up the floodgates to this type of content.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think there is a place for, humorous content where, like Spitting Image, for example. Like, are you familiar with Spitting Image?
Yeah.
The British TV sitcom. I think it's brilliant. It's really funny. They capture the essence of the character, but it's a person creatively impersonating, and it's a person using a puppet.
Yeah.
That exaggerates certain physical features that are designed to make people laugh. And I think in that instance, it's very clear that it's a parody. It's very clear that it's comedy. But when you have have a photorealistic face of Donald Trump or a world leader saying stuff, it really is. It is tricky.
Yeah.
And we're seeing, in Russia right now with Ukraine, there's a real information war. And I haven't seen too much deepfake stuff being spoken about, but I think the information wars of the future will be very much driven by this type of technology.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that, ministries of defense around the world are investing in this technology because it is a powerful tool to communicate ideas and to build trust and also to destroy trust. And I think that as a group of people, we need to make sure that this technology doesn't get abused and doesn't get misused.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I suppose you can argue the same of any and every tool and medium that has lowered barriers to communication, right back from the printing press and newspapers to the internet. Every single communication tool, right, has the ability to be misused and has always been misused as well as used for many good things as well, right? It's no different with the evolution of technology. It's just a different implementation of the same problem.
Absolutely. And even now, we're seeing so when trains first came to America, there were posters of these trains with demon-like faces destroying and terrorizing communities across the northwest of America.
Yeah.
And the ranter was that, trains are going to ruin our communities and destroy our lives, when actually it just enabled more trade. And I think in the creative industry right now, there is this school of thought around, creative AI is going to ruin the job of an artist.
Yeah.
And is going to destroy our income streams. And I think there are two things here. I think one is that there's an issue around the data that things are trained on. I think that, if people's artwork gets tagged and gets included in the data set, people should be paid like a royalty.
Yeah.
Because right now, with most of these tools, you can type in an artist's name and ask for a picture in the style of X.
I see.
You can put someone's DeviantArt handle in the description to stylize the photo. So obviously the data that's been scraped has also been tagged as being by the artist.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of brings up some problems because it allows people to recreate art in a certain style, which I think is unfair. Because there should be remuneration for artists when they've been included in the data set, their copyrighted stuff has been included without their permission. But on the flip side of that, I think that we're seeing prompt artists and we're seeing, a new type of wordsmith artistry that people are commercializing, people are making money from. It's really hard to make a good quality image. There was I think, was it Vogue or Vanity? One of these big magazines they tried to create a cover for their magazine using DALL-E 2. And they were talking about how hard it was to actually craft the right description to make the image. And so there's a whole industry being created here. And I think that more than this, like with any tool, you need people to direct it.
Absolutely.
And in the same way that going from pencil to watercolors to acrylic, and all the different art mediums that have developed over time, going from like chipping away a marble structure to cutting one with lasers, you still need artists to design and steer and guide.
Absolutely.
So I don't think the role of an artist is going anywhere as such. I think it's just rapidly evolving. And the artists of today, I would recommend that, if you are in digital art, that you would start using these tools and start to think about how you could manipulate them and use them to craft new types of pieces that represent your style.
No, absolutely. I've seen, not on the video and image side myself, but I've seen AI copywriting tools for kind of marketing copy and other types of copy. A lot of people getting quite vocal and angry about the existence of these tools. Oh, they can't replace X, Y, and Z. They're doing this, they're doing that. And I think for the people that have that as a skill and can create that kind of copy and probably better copy themselves, the people that I know are kind of a bit more progressive in terms of the way they're viewing this are saying, well, no, this is just a tool that can, maybe get me like 60% of the way there, or, some percentage of the way there across different types of client projects. And then it means that I'm doing my high value work, like a bigger percentage of their time is spent doing higher value work that they are skilled to do, rather than some of the lower value, more tedious, more manual stuff that they have to do to get to that point in the first place. So from their point of view, it is a progression and an improvement. And
also, like a lot of the stuff that's produced, it's not going to have the context of your business and the context of your customers. So while you can generate an article that will give you lots of information and facts, it still takes a real wordsmith, a real artist to then take this output and tailor it to the audience that it's designed for.
Exactly.
And yes, you can use it to manipulate algorithms for SEO purposes and whatever else. Yes, there are lots of immediate benefits, but if you really want to communicate with people, it does take a bit of craft.
No, absolutely. And I think, this has certainly been a very interesting conversation, to find out about your business and how you've developed and iterated to this point. But I think your vision of that future is massively interesting, and I think one that I can certainly see coming to fruition as well. And I think it is a big vision and mission that you've got, and tying into the way you've taken Yepic forward as that API, it makes a lot of sense. Before we wrap things up, is there anything for our audience of startup, scale-up founders that you want to get across? Any kind of interesting lessons learned, or potential opportunities that you see that they may be able to take advantage of?
I think that I've given so many nuggets away in the chat. There's something that really comes to mind, but I just think somebody once told me a wise man learns by his own mistakes, and even wiser man learns by the mistakes of others. And I think this parable is just so saying it's just so relevant to the open source community of today. There are so many people that are building stuff, and when you have a really active and really engaged open source community, there are so many answers out there. So many people would have encountered the same problems. I was speaking to a founder the other day, actually. They're currently on Entrepreneur First, and they have this idea to create a generative media company. And they were telling me about their business and their vision, and I sort of said, well, have you looked at this? And started sharing repos with them, and started sharing threads that I've been reading where people are talking about these things, and they were just blown away that someone else was doing their idea. And to explain that there's a whole community of people, and when something's out in the wild and available, there will be people trying to build something meaningful in the space.
Absolutely.
And I think open source is really, really powerful. We're actually thinking of open sourcing our VidVoice tool because to support multi-language translation in every language is quite an undertaking.
It's a big
for
problem
a company
to solve.
It's huge, right? Right now we support 5 languages really well, but 10 not so well.
Yeah.
And the goal is to cover the world, to help the world communicate. So I think open source can be an incredible tool. But yeah, I just think there's so many answers out there, so many cool projects, and just join Discord groups, join chats and find out what's going on.
Yeah, no, I think that's excellent advice. And I think to kind of summarize our discussion, which for me has been massively interesting, and I'm sure our audience will find it interesting as well, I think it kind of pulls on a few different threads, but what you just said certainly resonates, and something I would advise founders on as well is don't be afraid to do the research. Don't be afraid to go out there and really find out whether anyone has had your idea before, anyone has tried your idea, what other competitors there are. I see far too many founders doing a bit of shallow research and then getting a bit scared off of taking that further to another depth. And the result is that offer isn't as compelling, as well thought out as it really should be. And that blindness has led them down a particular path, as opposed to the journey that you've described, where you saw different problems, you saw some things that did work and didn't work, but you were then kind of committed to solving a bigger problem. But also I think it led you to different ways of being able to add value, so that the product you started with is certainly not the product that you've got now. And I think founders that are a bit blinded by and not willing to do that level of research wouldn't have followed that same kind of journey.
Yeah, and you have to just keep moving. I think there have been many dark times as well at Yepic, where we've been on the verge of running out of money, or grant funding hasn't been paid and stuff. And there's been quite a few dark moments. And I think you really, really find out what you and your team are made of when the darkness comes.
Yeah.
And I think you need to, as a founder, be committed to facing the darkness, because so many challenges will come your way. So many things won't work out. Yeah. And you will find yourself in situations where you really feel like giving up, where you lose your biggest customer, where a term sheet gets pulled, where, I've had all these things happen. Yeah. and it really, really, all like your tech fails. You've just taken on a huge customer. We just recently sort of signed up a gigantic user. Yeah. Like gigantic. And in the week of onboarding, like the whole video production pipeline just broke down. Wow. And videos were taking like 2 hours to render instead of like 2 to 5 minutes. Yeah. And we had like this massive technical meltdown. And it took the tech team like about a week to fully fix. And I was like bricking it. But it's really about facing these tough situations and just really pushing through and making sure that you and your team are prepared for them. And maybe ask your team, what would you all do if we were to run out of money tomorrow? See where people stand, and obviously tell them that's not the case. But it's good to have these discussions, and it's good to get people thinking about whether they really believe in the vision and the mission, especially at the beginning. Like at the beginning, Yepic had a third co-founder. We love him; he's great, and he did an incredible job. But for him, just startup life and the risk and uncertainty just wasn't for him. Yeah, and it's not for everybody. And it's better that you find out early on that your co-founder doesn't like risk. Yeah, absolutely. than finding out when the chips are down. No, definitely. That's my final bit of advice.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And I think, it does come down to that vision as well. And, you hear so many people talking about that, right? That people just kind of brush that off as if it's some motivational exercise. But I think without something, or a core that you can genuinely stick to and are passionate about sticking to, I think it can become a matter of just chasing whatever you think has got the biggest potential of the week or the day. And I've seen so many businesses just kind of tie themselves up in knots, chasing whatever thing they claim to be passionate about this week based on the most recent conversation they had with company X, Y, or Z, or investor A, B, or C, or whoever it may be.
That's important though, right? Because like you need to have before you find your North Star, you need to map out the stars.
Yeah.
You need to know which one is the North Star, right?
Indeed,
you can't map them out if you don't follow them a bit and see where they lead.
Yeah,
I get what you mean. Like at some point, you need to be like, I'm all in.
Yeah, and I think it's fine to evolve that vision, but I think what I'm referring to is where perhaps the vision is a bit too shallow. And it's, I think I can make some money over here. Or actually, someone said I can make some money over here with what we've got. I can make some money over there with what I've got. And I think that's where it's not really a vision. It's just something you think that you're tying to perhaps a goal that you've got, rather than as something that you're genuinely trying to chase and solve. There's no real core problems you're trying to solve for in those instances, I think.
I would say though, like if you just want to make some money, then that's a great route to go down.
Yeah, do that.
If you want to build a venture back company and you want to have a big team and you want to, do something meaningful that's going to like exit at a big valuation, it's probably not the right route to take. But like I follow some really cool like low code, no code people that their life is spent just taking like a cool new thing and wrapping it up in a product and selling it.
No, absolutely. But I'd argue that is their passion. That is their vision to do that. I think just don't pretend that you're trying to do something that you're not, I think, really.
Also, another bit of advice, don't attend a million networking events. I think years ago when I was sort of newer to startups, I used to have this idea that you had to just be at all the events to meet people. Yeah. And actually meeting people, making those connections is not how you build a big business. It's what happens in the follow-up afterwards that makes an impact. And if you both just say, oh, it's great to meet you, and that's the end of it, that's it. Like really, you should only be out meeting loads of people when you have a product that you need feedback on, or you have a product, a business that you're selling and shipping. I'd say at the beginning, when you're trying to develop an offering, you should go after people in a really personal way. Like find people on LinkedIn, ask friends for introductions to people doing interesting things, and really, really be very particular about your time and try to meet the right people and on your terms, not going to an event hoping you'll meet people. But that was a big lesson for me. I wasted a lot of time attending a lot of events just because I felt that being there would be helpful.
Yeah, I think if you do those events, definitely do them strategically with a goal in mind that you're trying to achieve and a way to actually do that. But like you say, if you turn up hoping to meet someone interesting, even if that person that you wanted to meet, if you don't know of yet, is there, your chances of meeting them at the right place and the right time are pretty small anyway, aren't they?
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Matthew, for your time. I've sort of shared a lot today, and our conversation has been a bit of a tapestry, and it's gone everywhere a little bit, but it's been really interesting. Yeah,
no, thank you for taking the time today as well. I think it's been definitely really interesting to hear about Yepic itself, as well as the foundations of it that I think people could and should take a lot from, as well as the vision from the future. And I hope we have, educated as well as inspired a few, fellow founders listening to this episode today. And I certainly wish you the best of luck with the ambitions that you've got for Yepic, and please do let us know how it evolves. But thank you again for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Inside the Scale Up. Remember, for the show notes and in-depth resources from today's guest, you can find these on the website insidethescaleup.com. You can also leave feedback on today's episode, as well as suggest guests and companies you'd like to hear from. Thank you for listening.